Making headlines tonight, officials address concerns about the local COVID-19 situation as the island records another case. Barbados and the region praised for their communication management during the COVID-19 pandemic. A plan in the works for a replacement to the cancelled Grand KADOOMENT activities. And coming up in sports, the Windies suffer a batting collapse and lose the second test against England.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. Barbados' latest COVID-19 positive case is a 10-year-old boy. The Barbadian child was among 125 passengers who arrived at the Grantley Adams International Airport yesterday on an Air Canada flight. He was the only positive case among 69 people on the aircraft who were tested for the viral illness. The other passengers carried validated negative COVID-19 PCR tests. There are now 106 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Barbados. 91 people have recovered, 8 are in isolation, and 7 have died. Well, concern has been building in Barbados since the relaxation of some of the COVID-19 protocols, allowing Barbadians to move around freely and patronize businesses, especially places of entertainment. Some of that concern relates to the lack of social distancing and people not wearing masks in public. Social media has been abuzz and comments have come from members of the medical profession. Here to address some of those issues is COVID-19 czar Richard Carter. Mr. Carter, good evening and thanks for coming on.
Good evening and thank you.
I know normally when we see you, that means that Barbadians have been a little naughty. So what's your latest assessment of Barbadians observing the protocols?
Yeah, so I actually have a statement that I want to read because I want to make it very clear and unambiguous so that everyone can understand clearly what I'm saying and there's no misinterpretation. Okay. So the behavior of a number of Barbadians attending social and entertainment events over the weekend showed the responsibility on 2 levels. On the part of a large number of persons who attended and disregarded the protocols for wearing face masks, physical distancing and sanitizing, and on the part of owners and organizers of these events who breached the protocols under which they are allowed to operate. So this message is clear and from the Cabinet of Barbados. There's an absolute and final warning. From tomorrow, bars, restaurants, nightclubs, and other places of entertainment that fail to rigorously observe the protocols will be closed down. Public transport vehicles that fail to observe the protocols for wearing face masks by drivers, conductors, and passengers will be pulled off the road. Supermarkets and shops that breach the protocols will be closed. Vendors in public markets selling fruit, vegetables, or fish who fail to observe the protocols will be closed down. These businesses, these operations, if they are observed in breach of those protocols by the COVID-19 monitoring unit, will be closed. So effectively, the concern is that here we are, almost on the eve of the observation of the Day of National Significance, where large numbers of Barbadians gave their lives for us to enjoy the quality of life that we do. And we have persons who are prepared to jettison all of that, to put ourselves at risk, to roll back all of those gains by not observing the simple protocols that are there in law.
Okay, so you're speaking about businesses being closed down from tomorrow if they're not observing protocols, vans being pulled off the road. And this is if they're observed by the monitoring committee. Tell us, the monitoring unit, tell us a bit about that monitoring unit, how it works. Because I'm listening to you saying business will be closed down, buses will be pulled off the road. I want to see it in my head. What will happen? How do they operate? So
the COVID-19 monitoring unit, and again, for avoidance of any uncertainty, I'm reading directly from the directive. The COVID-19 Protocol Monitoring Unit was established by the Government of Barbados. The unit shall monitor the conduct of individuals and the operation of businesses to ensure that protocols specified in the order by Prime Minister in relation to the conduct of individuals and businesses are observed by those individuals and operators of businesses. And it says any person who breaches the protocols or fails to observe the order of the member of the unit will be will be guilty of an offense and liable on summary conviction to a fine of $50,000 or imprisonment for a term of 1 year or both. So this is established by the government of Barbados essentially to monitor the observance of the protocols. There are a number of persons in the unit under the leadership of the deputy director of the deputy chairperson of public health, and that person will be, and his members of his unit will be going around Barbados to observe the level of which those protocols are being observed.
Now, the people have been in lockdown for quite a while, and now with the relaxation, there have been a lot of parties, especially over the weekends, a lot of establishments. Does the unit have enough people to get around to all of these bars and places of entertainment?
It is impossible to monitor the behavior of every single individual in Barbados. That is why the Act, and that is why common sense places the responsibility on the individual to monitor his own behavior, to be responsible for his own health and his own protection. The unit will probably have about 6 to 10 persons. That is not enough persons to monitor every single establishment, but nobody knows where the unit will be. And to tell the truth, as I said, the responsibility falls on every individual. Now, for me, no person fresh off a plane of indeterminate COVID-19 status could be seen hugging up Miss Carter last boy, because I will respect my health and I will protect my health in that regard. And therefore, it is up to every individual to protect themselves and to observe the protocols that have been established.
What are some of the ways that these establishments are in breach? Because I can say, for one, a popular mall that I frequent, a couple of weeks ago, going to the mall, I was having my temperature checked on entrance all the time. Recently, I've just been going through, probably get sanitized sometimes if the security official is there at the point. What's happening? Have you been observing, has Barbados been lapsing in what they've originally started out doing?
Yes, there's been a serious lapse. Some of it actually started when Barbados reached the first plateau in terms of zero cases. But of course, we've had cases since then. And I made the point even at that stage that those were zero cases in terms of what had been identified. There has always been and continues to be the possibility that there are persons out there who have not been determined, their COVID-19 status has not been determined because they have not been tested. So it is possible that there are asymptomatic persons walking around Barbados who could potentially be spreading COVID-19. In terms of the breach of the protocols, there have been businesses that have relaxed the requirement of temperature testing on entry, have relaxed the requirement of hand sanitization. I've been in markets where nobody is wearing masks, public fish markets and other types of markets. I've been in business places where nobody is taking a register of persons who is going to that business for purposes of possible contact tracing subsequently. So right around the landscape, you're seeing a breach of these protocols. I mentioned the minibuses and public other PSVs, and we see basically very few of the conductors and drivers and even fewer of the passengers actually wearing face masks, as is required by law. All of them are running the risk of a $50,000 fine and a year imprisonment. Are they prepared to do this simply for the fact that they're prepared to breach the protocols?
Okay, let me use myself as an example. Let me ask a question, because people may want to know what they're supposed to be seeing when they go out. A couple of weeks ago, against my will, so a group of friends dragged me out to a bar and had a couple drinks. When I went there, my temperature wasn't taken. There was no hand sanitizing. Obviously, no masks were being worn because you're eating and drinking. What should happen when I go to a bar?
So, again, the protocols are laid out very clearly on the Government Information Service. These protocols have been shared with the operators of these establishments. The requirement is that on entry, you must be wearing a mask to get in. Your temperature should be taken, your hands should be sanitized. Everyone who is serving in that bar should be wearing a face mask or a face shield. Yes, you are allowed to take off your mask if you are seated at a table, but there are restrictions in terms of approaching the bar, gathering around the bar. Essentially, nobody should be around or in a bar partying without a face mask because that is in breach of the protocols.
Thank you so much. I wish we had some more time to speak, but we have to get on.
Yeah, well, just a final reminder that as of tomorrow, the COVID-19 monitoring unit will be in full effect, and those persons, they must have been warned by now. If you fail to observe, you will be punished for breaching.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay, wonderful. That was COVID-19 czar Richard Carter. The opposition People's Party for Democracy and Development is calling for stricter protocols travel into the island. Spokesperson on health, Paul Gibson, made the plea during a media conference earlier today. He believes the current procedure of testing 3 days ahead of departure creates a window where people can become infected before travel.
Testing 72 hours before arrival, though it helps to ease the pressure in the arrival hall, it creates opportunities for COVID-infected patients or asymptomatic carriers to find their way into the country and allow for the spread of this life-threatening virus to get into our country and into our communities. We also endorse the long-stay visitor 12-month stamp. However, if persons are being offered this, they too should be quarantined for at least 14 days.
Mr. Gibson has also expressed concerns over reports from the Bahamas that travelers are presenting falsified COVID-19 PCR test results to officials.
This is another concern for us. How do we guarantee that the PCR test that you actually are walking into the country with or that you filled out is legitimate?
Absolutely.
All right? If it is not coming directly from the source lab, you could have persons, and it has been happening in Bahamas, they've shut their borders down because persons are walking in with false documents. And these are things that we have to guard against.
Barbados and the Caribbean have done well in the areas of communication as countries battle the COVID-19 pandemic. The kudos have come from Sir George Allen, Director Emeritus of the Pan American Health Organization and former Chancellor of the University of the West Indies. Sir George was among the panelists for an online session organized by PAHO entitled NCD Revisited during COVID-19, Building Back Better.
I have been impressed that in the Caribbean, the credible, consistent communication that has come from all levels. And I think this is one of the features, I think, of the Caribbean response, the communication that has been so consistent at all levels. How credible it has been, how consistent it has been.
Sir George says improved management of non-communicable diseases is crucial as countries build back post-COVID-19. He sees this as important before the next viral pandemic arrives.
What I would like to emphasize in the management of NCDs, what I would like to propose that we think of what I call the rectangularization of the lifespan. In other words, that you should young, get to adulthood, and maintain a fairly steady lifespan and then a sudden decline. That you should have an NCD-free lifespan and compress morbidity into the last few years of life. In order to do that, you need a life course focus. You need to focus on the things that can prevent NCDs as early as possible. The things that can prevent NCDs as early as possible.
Culture Minister John King has hinted at the possibility of a celebration to replace Grand KADOOMENT this year in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Grand KADOOMENT, which falls on the first Monday of August each year, marks the culmination of the Crop Over Festival. However, the COVID-19 pandemic, the 2020 edition, has been cancelled because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. King says his ministry is working in conjunction with the National Cultural Foundation to arrange the event.
Yes, there are going to be events. I don't think they're going to take the same format as a Grand KADOOMENT, but they will have aspects of costumes and other things. But like I said, we're in the process now of rethinking and reimagining those particular events. But all I can say to you at this point in time is that when we are finished, it's going to be good.
While not revealing all the details, the Culture Minister says elements of the all-day event are still being finalized.
We're really going to be encouraging parishes to do things right across the island. But what I can say, it's going to be all day. For sure, it's going to be all day long.
It's often said there's a silver lining behind every dark cloud, but it simply means there's a positive to what appears to be a negative situation. And for this couple, Nisha Hippolyte and Corey Jemmett, that saying has proven to be quite true. Due to the local lockdown and other COVID-19 restrictions, they were forced to put the brakes on their wedding plans. Shortly after, they entered and won a B-Vents competition that offered a wedding reception package as a prize to a frontline worker who was forced to put their plans on hold because of the pandemic. And they're elated about coming out on top.
I was so happy. I was actually home painting because we are now moving into a new house together. And I was home painting and he was just on his way to work when I got the call. I dropped the paintbrush, got down off of the ladder and all of that, totally in tears. And yes, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that I actually won.
Finding out that she had won, at first I was in awe. And then, cause how she called me, like, what you doing? Like, I got something to tell you. So it was like, I watched her at home, like, fall down or something, you understand? So then when she told me, obviously it was not jumping because it was in the air, but yeah, I was really excited.
The competition was the brainchild of Beverly Andrews to give back to those on the front line. She also gave an overview of the contents of the winning package.
What the winner will receive, a photography package. We have as well drone imagery, so the entire event is going to be taken from overhead. 5 persons in the decor category, 3 florists, a couture designer, and he's on his way here. So even though we are taking care of the reception, they are going to have 2 changeover outfits made by our couture designer. Yes, he's on his way here. Dinner, we have food and beverage, full package in terms of what the guests will receive, a 2-tier wedding cake, a 2-night honeymoon staycation at a villa on the West Coast, and a DJ, Steel Panis Entertainment. So they will be singing during the ceremony and during the reception.
Wow. Well, legislation to better manage jet ski and pleasure cruise operators is a step closer to becoming a reality. The Ministry of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy recently held a closed-door briefing involving these operators and other stakeholders to provide an update on the existing legislation concerning this part of the ministry's portfolio. Held at the Barbados Industrial Development Corporation on Harbour Road, the session was hosted in part by Minister Kirk Humphrey, Permanent Secretary Sonia Foster, Harbour Master Carl Gonzalez, Chief Technical Officer in the Ministry Jacqueline Blackman, Malcolm Duncan from the Barbados Coast Guard, as well as Superintendent Adrian Brooms from the Royal Barbados Police Force. The legislation being brought to 21st century standards is the Domestic Vessel Act. Parts of the law explained include what constitutes a foreign vessel, what is a pleasure cruise vessel, the differences between a boat master and a boat technician, and ensuring occupational safety and health standards are globally compliant as well. The operators have agreed to convene quickly to review it in order to submit their recommendations before it is sent to Cabinet for a final decision. Well, coming up, Ghana's Chief Justice makes a ruling on the March 2nd elections. And before we get to all of that, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
During a hurricane, you should avoid moving around outside unless it is absolutely necessary. This is because of the danger posed by falling objects and the impacts of high winds. Cooperators General Insurance, helping you to be prepared this hurricane season.
In Ghana, Chief Justice Roxanne George today ruled that the results of the national vote recount must be used to declare the results of the March 2nd elections. She also ruled that the country's chief elections officer is not a law unto his own and must do as he is directed by the Ghana Elections Commission. Joining us now live to talk about the latest development is political analyst Peter Wickham. Peter, good evening. Thank you for joining us all the way from France. What time is it?
Hey, it's about 1 in the morning. So
1 in the morning. Okay, thank you for joining us. It's good to be with you. So, all right, Peter, somewhere along the line between the first recount and then the CCJ, ruling. I'm totally lost. What is happening in Guyana in the elections?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are lost, and essentially what we are having is a stalemate. Ultimately we've had a result based on a recount. The government is resolutely refusing to accept it, and they have essentially started on a campaign where they are effectively abusing the court system. Justice George today ruled in a way that was consistent with the CCJ and with the Guyana Appeal Court. So essentially we have a series of judgments that demonstrate that what was held in the recount was correct. We have a chorus of almost thousands of people suggesting from around the world that the APNU AFC has lost the election and should perhaps concede. And we have a resolute position that they're taking. So now they have engaged in a campaign where they are now appealing to the appeal court in Guyana, and from there they will appeal to the CCJ. So what is quite frankly a circus will continue for some time, it would seem.
So Peter, did the APNU FC, any official said anything this evening after this latest ruling?
No, I listened with great interest, and I heard nothing from the president. He hasn't spoken yet. The APNU AFC website has gone silent for the time being, consistent with what happened after the CCJ ruling. So my assumption is that they're having a strategy meeting of some sort. But for the time being, all we have heard was from their lawyer, and the lawyer at the hearing today, and Ms. Jones' lawyer, indicated that they will be appealing the matter to the appeal court. So I'm assuming that that's their official position.
How far does this go? What is happening to Guyana as this continues to roll on?
Right. Yeah, I mean, what's happening is tragic. The economy is almost at a standstill. We're told that the state has virtually run out of money in terms of the ability to pay salaries and wages because no vote has been given from Parliament. Parliament in Guyana has been suspended now for the better part of a year because, remember, there was a vote of no confidence and Parliament rose at that point in time. Ultimately, the situation in Guyana is at a standstill. I think that the supporters of the PPP are exercising considerable restraint and not taking to the streets. I'm happy about that. But, you know, it's only a matter of time because I think that the patience of people is wearing thin. And now they have another matter to deal with. And the president has not necessarily been helping because all he keeps saying is that, you know, he's waiting on GCOM to make a decision. And you know, he's not been very helpful.
Well, thanks a lot, Peter. I hope the next time we speak, we'll be talking about a result, an actual result and a way forward for Guyana.
The result of the next appeal, it would seem we will be talking about, but we'll keep in touch.
All right, thanks so much.
Sure.